Oh, but we're not in the beginning. I love it. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Let's wait a few more seconds so that you can take your seats and we'll start. Great. Okay, so good evening everyone and welcome. My name is Shirley Bachar. I'm the Director of Public Programs at the American Jewish Historical Society. Thank you so much for coming in here on such a stormy day. I really appreciate it. You guys are the core committed audience that we have here. Welcome back if you've been here before to our programs, and if not, welcome. The American Jewish Historical Society is just one of 5 partner organizations actually housed in this building, the Center for Jewish History. So we're partnered with the Leo Baeck Institute, EVO, the Yiddish Institutes for Research, Yeshiva University Museum, and the American Sephardi Federation. But the AJHS alone is actually home to, so we're actually an archive, right? So there's 5 floors of stacked attached to this building. So I really want you to remember this whenever you come for a program that, yeah, we're actually an archive. So the AJHS was founded in 1892, and we're home for over 30 million documents, manuscripts, photographs, artifacts, etc. Many of them you can actually access online. If you go to search CJH, you can see them because we're digitizing more and more of them. So it's all becoming more accessible. And really our programs are the way to make everything accessible too. So tonight we're here, and I'm very, very honored to have our special guest here for a program on seltzer and egg cream. And we're celebrating Barry Joseph's new book, Seltzertopia, and we're celebrating the New York City premiere of the movie Egg Cream by Peter Miller. And we have a wonderful moderator, Andrew Coe here. And so thank you and welcome. And this is the image you're seeing right now. This is from our museum collections. These are old seltzer bottles. So just one of the, really magical objects that we have here. And Peter Miller, when he was working on the egg cream short film that you're gonna see tonight, he was actually using photographs from our collection, which is just one reason why we're hosting this wonderful program here. And we have a really wonderful, huge collection of photographs from the Lower East Side. This is just, for example, photographs from the 1930s. And really, I mean, this is just a really good example for all the different things that you can come here and do research on, because you could be interested in the Lower East Side, you could be interested in photography, you could be interested in representation of women, you can be interested in so many things, and we have the materials right here to really delve into stuff. So another reason why this program, we're hosting it here, is really we have great collections having to do with food, right? And this is one of the collections we have here. This is Rabbi Tobias Geffen, the personal private materials. And he's really wide known for his 1935 decision that certified Coca-Cola as kosher. So all these wonderful things, yes. All these wonderful things, you can come here to the reading room, to the library, and just check out for your personal interest, for scholarly interest, whatever. So what's the rundown of the show? Real quickly, we're gonna start with the film, 15 minutes film. And then Barry Joseph is going to talk about his book, for a little bit, and then we're going to have a conversation with Andrew Ko, with Peter Miller, and with Barry Joseph. And just to give you a few more words, Andrew Ko, he's the author of Chop Suey, A Cultural History of Chinese Food in the United States. Really accomplished food scholar. We're so glad to have you here. Peter Miller has done so many other documentaries before this one. And Barry Joseph is really a nationally known innovator of informal learning programs. So he does a lot of after-school programs and working with museums such as the American Museum of Natural History. And he'll tell you all about how he started researching seltzer. And he has this website, Seltzertopia, you have to go to. He started researching it when he wrote a piece to the foreword in 2004, okay? So, oh, and of course I forgot the most important thing. After the show, at about 8:15, we're gonna go outside and have egg cream. And it's going to be a do-it-yourself, so there's instructions outside, but you can really mix it up. You can put the seltzer first, or you can put the milk first, and we'll be there out there to help you. Thank you again so much for coming, and I hope to see you later and again.
What do you miss?
Egg cream.
Oh. Well, the bagels too, because of the water, but the egg cream.
Egg creams.
Oh.
I remember being like 4 years old.
When I was 11 years old, I decided to make a documentary. My dad was a filmmaker, and it was going to be our first collaboration. We chose as our subject the chocolate egg cream. My father thought the film would be a chance to explore deep questions of history, memory, and Jewish tradition. I thought it would get me some delicious chocolate soda drinks. We filmed a bunch, but then got distracted and put the project on hold. About 10 years later, we found the old videotapes in a closet. And now I'm wondering what this ancient story of a forgotten drink, of an immigrant past that I never really knew, and of my 11-year-old self trying to make sense of it all might tell us about what it means to be a part of history. To start our journey, my dad and I visited with Andy Ko, a food historian who had written the first scholarly article about the history of the egg cream. The story, he told us, began on the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
What people found in the egg cream 100 years ago in the tenements districts of New York City was a kind of short, blissful moment of relief from the heat. And it was also a kind of relief from hunger, a hunger for richness. Because egg creams, if they were anything, were something which gave you a taste of richness, chocolate and milk mixed together.
I hoped Andy could also answer a fundamental paradox. Why would you call a drink that has neither eggs nor cream an egg cream?
Well, the origins of the egg cream are shrouded in mystery. No one really knows why there's no egg and there's no cream in an egg cream. And my theory is because it's a kind of cheap copy of soda fountain drinks in the fancier districts. And so what they were trying to do was give people the sense that they were having a fancy uptown kind of drink for a very downtown kind of price.
I went searching for people who could tell me the secrets of how to make an authentic egg cream, and I didn't have to look too far.
We're going to Long Island to film my sister's friend's grandfather talking about the egg cream.
Hello, nice to meet you. Nora. Yeah. Oh, Nora, I think I'm...
Look what I got a handful. A handful. In 1937, we had a candy store. We used to serve drinks, ice cream. They must have liked the egg creams because they used to come back for more.
So how do you make an egg cream anyway?
If you want, I'll show you how. You would take the syrup, chocolate syrup, put it in a glass, take the milk and add to it. You put the spoon in the drink, and then you put the seltzer in.
And sometimes the seltzer explodes. Thank you.
How do you like it? Does it taste good?
It tastes really delicious.
It does? I'm glad you like it.
Still, this refreshing drink made from 3 simple ingredients seemed to tap into something deeper in Jewish history.
Okay, hand her the egg cream.
So I went to my Hebrew school teacher, Jerry, who every winter told a completely preposterous story of the origins of the egg cream that sounded a great deal like the Hanukkah story.
In ancient times, this small band of soldiers and their leader, the great Judah Maccabee, fought one of the first wars of one country getting liberated from another country.
According to Jerry's story, the Maccabee soldiers, led by Malka, a woman warrior, confronted the enemy inspired by a battle cry echoing an ancient metaphor about how the Torah was said to have been written, with white fire on black fire.
And they inched closer and closer. She raised her dagger in the air and she shouted out, "White fire on black fire!" And they ran down the hill. And a great battle was fought and Antiochus' army was smashed. But Malka's band stopped. She took off her helmet and she took the bucket of milk and poured a little bit into the bottom of the helmet. And then she held the helmet under that bubbling brook coming up from the ground. And then she took something that she had made from little dark beans and she poured it straight down into the middle. And then she took her dagger and she stirred it around. And she raised it up and showed it to her friends. And she said, "White fire on black fire." At that moment, they drank the very first egg cream in the history of the world. And there you see, white fire on black fire, a perfect egg cream.
I think it's the most delicious thing on earth.
Fast forward thousands of years to the impoverished neighborhoods of Jewish immigrants in the early 20th century.
It's a hot, stifling day on the streets of the Lower East Side in Manhattan. You need relief. So you go into a soda parlor and you have to sort of muscle your way up to the counter. The soda jerk is rinsing the glasses in dirty water. So you order an egg cream, and no matter how dirty the glass is and no matter how uncomfortable you are, you take that little moment of drinking the egg cream, and that's like the little moment which you sort of treasure for the rest of the day, because that's the only moment where you really have like something good in your life.
By the time I was a kid, it had been decades since Jews were crowded into the tenements of the Lower East Side. Most had moved to fancier neighborhoods, and over the years, the egg cream got more upscale too. We drove to Brooklyn, to Tom's, an old-fashioned diner known for an especially indulgent version of the chocolate egg cream.
We're going to demonstrate to you how to make the perfect egg cream. We start off with ice cold milk. We put a dash of seltzer. We put some nice chocolate syrup, U-Bet chocolate syrup. And we stir. The classic egg cream doesn't have whipped cream, but I make it with whipped cream. And that gets on that.
That looks good.
And that looks good. And this makes it look even better. And I top that up with a straw. And you have an egg cream.
Best egg creams I've ever had in my life. They're so good. It's so good to watch them make it.
For what might have been the first time ever, my little sister Anna agreed with me.
I think that when I went to Tom's there, it was like the best. It was like the best egg creams I've ever had in my life. It had whipped cream, but I think that is a great addition that would make it taste really good. It actually was the part that made it taste better than all the other egg creams I ever had.
I was more than fine with an egg cream topped with whipped cream and extra chocolate syrup. But my dad thought that it was inauthentic and insisted we look for places that better represented the austere egg creams of our immigrant past. And we found Eisenberg's.
This is Eisenberg's Sandwich Shop. It's been here since 1929.
Eisenberg's was now owned by a young Jewish guy named Josh, but he wasn't the one who prepared the egg creams.
Can I have an egg cream, please?
They were made by Jose, who was originally from Mexico.
I've watched Jose make egg cream since I bought this place. He's got to do 200 a day, and I watch it, and then I come over because they're busy, and I make an egg cream. It's terrible. It's 3 simple ingredients. I still can't get it right.
Like cold milk, chocolate syrup, and seltzer. And you just mix it up, and that's it.
Delicious.
Though we lived in the 21st century and far from the squalor of the Lower East Side, my parents ordered seltzer through an old-fashioned delivery service run by a man named Walter. So naturally, I had to ask Walter's advice on how to make the perfect egg cream.
I'm holding a bottle of Fox U-Bet syrup, which most people who make egg creams, they swear that this is the quintessential ingredient in making a good egg cream. Of course, you need my seltzer to actually bring it over the edge and bring it up a notch, but you got to start with this.
Well, Fox's U-Bet was founded by a guy named Herman Fox. And he was one of the big syrup manufacturers who ganged up to kick the little mom-and-pop syrup operations out of business.
Fox's U-Bet, the essential ingredient to any egg cream, has a troubling backstory? Who knew? Maybe the egg cream isn't such a happy subject after all. So I turned to my grandpa, who grew up in the Jewish ghetto in Boston, to see what he thought.
As I look back on egg cream, I think of Rebbe's grocery store on Intervale Street. And he had a fountain that, even at that time, sort of a run-down, decrepit fountain. He had a glass that was under the seltzer spigot. I think he just rinsed it by what they call schwenken, you know. And I think he used the same glass for everybody. And don't get mad, but it's the honest to God's truth. I'm not that impressed with egg creams.
It turned out that even Andy, the historian of egg creams, didn't really like them that much.
I don't think the egg creams are the best soda fountain drink ever invented. If it's a hot day and you want something really refreshing, I go for a Lime Ricky.
Josh at Eisenberg's told me that he associated the egg creams that he had as a child with the darkest time in Jewish history.
When I was a kid, I used to go to a guy who had a place across the street from my apartment building, and his name was Yankel, and it was a dingy old place, but he made a terrific egg cream. The fascinating thing about Yankel, whenever he was wearing, he would have one sleeve down, and like this, he'd have one sleeve up, always rolled up, which would reveal his concentration camp number, which he wanted people to see. And he never changed his expression, and he never spoke. And that's my memory of egg creams.
Egg creams have a certain sadness to them. And I think it's because people realize in drinking that, people of a certain age, you know, who were born in a certain neighborhood, realize that they've lost something. And they can remember it for the few moments in which they're downing an egg cream, but they can never gain it back.
The egg cream's power to people, I began to realize, was not in its flavor but in what it evoked, a hazy memory of simpler times. We talked to Ron and John, who used to live in New York and now live in Atlanta.
You know what I miss about New York, John? What do you miss? The egg cream.
Oh.
Well, the bagels too, because of the water, but the egg cream.
Egg creams.
Oh.
I remember being like 4 years old, and my brothers were much older than me, and they used to make egg creams, and I would hear the spoon, ding, ding, ding. I'd be like, oh, please make me one. Oh, God.
Well, I love an egg cream right now.
He makes them good. I can make them, but Wyatt Frahn's gonna make them.
The essential makings of an egg cream, keep this basic 3 ingredients. Don't have U-bets, but we're gonna go with Hershey syrup. Now we're gonna add our milk. 1/3, half the way up the cup. Stir. You wanna get that chocolate all at the bottom. Make sure it's evenly distributed. And seltzer out of this beautiful machine over here. For me, it's the magic moment. Here we go. Stir, 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 stir. We got our lovely froth. Look at that, like an egg. Delicious. Brings back my childhood.
As I think back on it, as a young kid, I felt like egg creams connected me to a past I may not have known or understood, but that somehow resonated within me as a part of my heritage. So we served them at my bat mitzvah.
Hi, can I have an egg cream? Yeah. My pleasure.
White fire on black fire. The more I think about the egg cream now, the more it feels like a midrash, a wise commentary that helps explain difficult parts of Jewish scripture. Was the egg cream a story that immigrant Jews in America told themselves to make sense of their poverty? A made-up potion with no eggs or cream that gave them a mythology to live by? I still don't fully know what it all means, but I do know that there's a lot to be learned from 3 simple ingredients and thousands of years of history.
A young man, no bigger than this. A chocolate egg cream was not your miss. Some you bet chocolate syrup, seltzer water mixed with milk. Stir it up until it hit it flow, tasted just like silk. You scream, I steam, we all want egg cream.
Please join me in thanking Peter again for this wonderful film. Eddie, can you turn off the lights, please, for a moment? Before I begin, actually, give me Eddie a moment first to change up here. Before I begin, I need your help to help me remember this moment. I'll need to do a little costume change. That's the shirt. This is my hat. Fox's syrup. Also has a Now Fizzing pin. Anyone here from Now Fizzing? It's the secret Facebook group for seltzer lovers. What are you doing here tonight? This was a photo I took on my way over here. It's a half a block west. A tree down across cars on both sides of the street. Do you really love egg creams that much? Well, from now on, don't let anyone ever question your egg cream loyalty. You can tell them not only did you come out in a New York City snowstorm to get an egg cream, but you came just to hear about egg creams. You braved the weather, and thank you. So welcome. Welcome to the age of effervescence. I'm Barry Joseph, and tonight, Tonight we talk about egg creams. But first, a poem. Ode to soda water. Delicious drink, albeit unsubstantial, fraught with fruit syrup or extraneous essence. Mighty, monarchic in thy reign, though man shall scoff at thy evanescent effervescence. Concoction beautiful, inimitable, by every girl art thou assimilated, in quantities unparalleled, illimitable, while man's finances become abbreviated. Anonymous, 1884, from the National Bottlers Gazette. I think it's safe to say in this case, Anonymous was not a woman. So how did I get here? Well, I took the F train. No, seriously, I wrote a book that just came out, as was mentioned earlier, Seltzertopia. Mel Brooks said that of the thousands of books written, this is by far his favorite. Favorite about seltzer, that is. And especially said because of the part that's all about him. What's that part all about, you might ask? Wrong question. The right question is what all this has to do with Playboy magazine, specifically the this February 1975 issue. Well, this issue featured a long interview with Mel Brooks, in which he said, first, you gotta get a can of Fox's You Bet chocolate syrup. Whoops, let me go back. There we go. First, you gotta get a can of You Bet's chocolate syrup. Take a big glass and fill 1/5 of it with You Bet syrup. Then add about half a shot glass of milk. And you gotta have a seltzer spout with 2 speeds. One son of a bitch bastard that comes out like bullets and scares you. One normal, regular person speed that comes out nice and soft and foamy. So hit the tough bastard, the bullets of seltzer first. Smash through the milk into the chocolate and chase the chocolate furiously all around the glass. Then, when the mixture is halfway up the glass, you turn on the gentle stream and you fill the glass with seltzer, all the time mixing with a spoon. Then taste it, but sit down first because you might swoon with ecstasy. Here I am a few years ago where I got this hat with David Fox, whose grandfather founded the company in 1900 and mixed their first chocolate syrup in his Brooklyn kitchen. Well, in 1975, someone called him up and said, hey, David, your company's in Playboy. So he read the interview and decided to write a letter. February 7th, 1975. Dear Dr. Brooks, I have just finished reading your brilliant and most timely critique of the medicinal uses of Fox's You Bet, the all-healing elixir. By way of congratulating you on bringing to the attention of the medical profession, as well as to all the laymen, this ancient of Hebraic potions, we wish to maintain the supply in your apothecary jars. If you would be so kind as to forward your address to the writer, we will send via eyes-only mail enough product to keep you supplied knee-deep in bubbly egg creams. Very truly yours, H. Fox and Company, Inc., David Fox, President. What do you think? Did he get a letter back? He did, just a few weeks later. February 26, 1975. Dear David, I am at 20th Century Fox. Uncle Joe was a furrier for AJ Fox, and now I get a letter from David Fox of H. Fox and Company, makers of that dark ambrosia commonly referred to as Fox's You Bet chocolate. It means something. I don't know what, but it means something. Anyway, I thank you for your kind offer. Money, diamonds, jewels, I could refuse, but never a couple of jars of You Bet chocolate. Send it to me quick, now. Milk and seltzer are waiting. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I remain your obedient Jew, Mel Brooks. You Bet is clearly the most common egg cream chocolate, but not all agree it's the best. One of those mans is Stanley Oster. I will now read you a small section from my book. I have a whole chapter about egg creams, about his beginning. This section is called The Egg Cream Mafia. Little Stanley Oster was terrified when the mobster insisted he follow him to the back of the store. Oh my God, he thought, I'm dead. It just wasn't fair. He wasn't even supposed to be managing his grandfather's store at the time, at least not on his own, and he was only 13. But what he realized next gave him courage. I don't think anyone has ever been shot by someone who had an egg cream in his hand. Like most of his friends on the Lower East Side, Stanley had become a bar mitzvah earlier in the year. But he felt he truly came of age a few months later when a family crisis forced him to learn his grandfather's recipe for the egg cream. Not an egg cream, but the egg cream. As Stanley and others would later argue, the Oster egg cream is the original. Its recipe still a family secret, locked in a vault, and never shared outside the family, even to this day. Stanley's grandfather, Louis Oster, had arrived in the United States in New York City in 1890. He eventually opened his first candy store on Stanton and Cannon, then continued to open one for each of his 6 sons, each one more successful than the last. The largest, in the heart of the Yiddish Theater District, was at 2nd Avenue and 7th Street. To meet theater-goer demands, the candy store featured a 125-seat ice cream parlor in the back. Like other candy stores of the era, it sold cigarettes and cigars, but 98% of their business was egg creams. At the start of one summer, young Stanley got the call he'd been waiting for. "Stanley," his Uncle Milton said, guiding him behind the brown paper window so no one could see how he mixed the syrup. "I'm gonna show you how to make the egg cream." Stanley's father had recently taken ill and would need to rest for the season. To keep the recipe in the family, it was time for Stanley to enter the elite circle of egg cream experts. "I came of age suddenly that summer," he explained. "Like my bar mitzvah, today I am a man." That afternoon he learned and soon mastered the family secret. Stanley was offering more than just a drink. The candy store was a bustling social club composed of a motley assortment of out-of-work men, many of whom were evading, even breaking the law, with names like Spuggy, Swindler, and Bumblenose. While most patrons were harmless, just a bunch of kibitzers standing around chatting, the store also attracted the Jewish mafia. Before Bugsy Siegel would visit, 3 of his men, big like wrestlers, would drive up and check out the store like the Secret Service, then make everyone leave. Upon receiving the all clear, 3 more men outside would halt pedestrian traffic, opening a path for a man arriving in his second car. Surrounded by 2 additional men, in walked Bugsy for his egg cream. When he was ready to leave, Louis Oster would refuse to let him pay. Stanley recalled a different mobster, more of a lone wolf than a leader, always full of smiles and warmth and fondness, but that was only for his friends, it turned out. He was psychopathic. Stanley learned, and would later be machine gunned in the street. But years before his demise, this mobster made Stanley fear for his life. At the time, 13-year-old Stanley was alone in the store. The gangster came in, walking very quietly. "Hello, Stanley," he said, with that same sweet smile. "Can I see you in the back for a moment?" Stanley was petrified. 2 days earlier, he had thrown the gangster's brother-in-law out in the street, for refusing to stop harassing some female patrons. "I gave him his egg cream," Stanley recalled. He takes it and walks to the back. The mobster tried to confirm what he'd heard, that Stanley had had a shoving match with his brother-in-law. What could Stanley say? Lying was not an option, so he tried to downplay it. It was nothing, he insisted, really nothing. The mobster would have none of it. They went back and forth a few times, the mobster looking for confirmation, Stanley insisting it was nothing. "Well, I want you to know," the mobster finally explained to the young soda jerk, "you won't have any trouble with him again." The mobster had broken the brother-in-law's arm and put him in the hospital. "He'll never bother you again," he repeated. The mobster wasn't there for revenge. It was just his form of an apology over an Oster egg cream. Stanley, flash forward to the 1980s, was on NBC News.
Chuck, Pat.
Al, thank you. Some people claim they were first served in Parisian cafes. Another gives credit to Eastern Europe. But true believers in New York say look no farther than the Lower East Side for the origin of egg creams. News 4's Connie Collins has that bit of old New York.
The Lower East Side, turn of the century, the corner of Staten and Cannon. People used to gather, indeed stand in line at Alster's candy store for this.
We even had egg cream clubs, where in order to become a member of the club, you had to drink 10 egg creams in 30 minutes.
Stanley Oster knows from egg creams. He can tell you how to drink them.
It doesn't hurt to have your fingers wet while you're drinking it, and you seldom, it just adds to the excitement of it.
And he can tell you how to make them, but he won't. All because of a promise he made to his grandfather.
And they usually talk to people while they're drinking it, and say, "I wonder what's in here."
What is in here?
I can't tell you.
Why can't you tell me?
Because it's a family secret.
But you can tell me.
I must decline.
Why?
On the grounds that it'll cause me to be disinherited.
You see, Stanley Ouster is the grandson of Louis Ouster, reputed by some and perhaps refuted by others to be the originator of the egg cream, the original egg cream.
He was tinkering around, and he said, gee, this looks good, this tastes good, I'll add this, I'll add that. A few people were around. Each one said, hey, this seems a little better than before. And little by little, it was slowly constructed, and the rest is history.
According to Stanley, the secret is in the syrup, the secret that was passed down from grandfather to sons to grandsons.
My grandfather never would trust any woman with a secret so.
Actually worked on his wife, and his wife, I said, you watch her make it, and then you'll tell me. And she sort of said, okay.
Jeff Kieseloff thought he'd learned the secret when he invited Stanley to the party to launch his new book about old New York, but Stanley fooled him.
So when he went to make it for the party, he made sure she was out of the house so she wouldn't see it.
He wouldn't make it here.
He wouldn't, no, he made it all at his house, and we brought it over.
But wait a minute, are they really that good?
This lacks milk. It's not the best I've ever had. Sorry.
Really?
Yeah.
You sure you won't tell me?
I'm certain. I've gotten all kinds of offers.
Money?
Everything. There was some I can't even talk about.
From women?
Of course.
Stanley, what would your grandfather say? Connie Collins, News 4, Manhattan.
Oh, that was fun.
That's the news for this evening. Thanks for joining us. Tom Brokaw is straight ahead with complete coverage of world and national events on NBC Nightly News. And Sue and I will see you again at 11 o'clock tonight.
Good night.
Before we continue, I need to take out a little seltzer. It says 12 ounces on it. I think it's from a dollhouse. So has anyone been keeping count? How many different ways to make a seltzer have we seen so far tonight? At least 3? We're going to have at least one more. For most, the true origins of the egg cream is lost to history. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to back up a moment. I forgot to mention. Stanley passed away this year. I'm sad to say. We were lucky to have had so many people interview him on video and in books that we can tell some of that family story now. But that recipe, where is it? We don't know. For most, the true origin of the egg cream is lost to history. Many people will claim they know that they were there at the beginning. But increasingly, many people are saying it's not about the history that's important. It's about what we can do with egg creams today. And as a result, somehow the egg cream has turned into a battleground. This is a video I made a few years ago at the high-end restaurant 11 Madison Park, and try to track the different ways they modified the traditional recipe.
Okay, now he's pouring the vanilla malt syrup that also has some sea salt in it.
Do you know what gives it the brown color? Or the caramel color, perhaps?
No, it's from the malt.
The malt. Oh.
Yeah.
Vanilla malt, sea salt.
And now the milk.
Milk.
It looks like he's intentionally trying to run it off the side. Is there a...
No, he's messing it up a little bit. Now some olive oil, which gives it the creaminess.
Olive oil. And seltzer.
Now the seltzer, and ideally it comes just slightly over the top.
How did you learn the spooning techniques or debates about that?
We just found that this was the best way that worked for us.
This was a mid-course palate cleanser for a meal that cost about $250. Blogger Jeremiah Moss doesn't like this idea. Moss is chronicler of a vanishing New York, and this is his book that came out recently, which I highly recommend. And he launched a more impassioned call to arms, fighting not just for a recipe, but a way of life. He said, "This trend of dressing up the egg cream and slapping a big price tag on it is part of a larger trend in which foodies take the ordinary food of ordinary New Yorkers, like hot dogs and pizza, and upscale them for more affluent and discerning clientele. It's not unlike the movement of the wealthy into poor and working class neighborhoods. The new egg cream becomes artisanal and exclusive, just like the new real estate across the Lower East Side. So you could call this the gentrification of the egg cream. It's a hostile takeover." When I told Daniel Hume, the chef at 11 Madison Park, the voice who you heard before, about his detractors, he just laughed. He's not against the traditional egg cream. In fact, he said he loved it and called it almost an art form. But that wasn't enough. He said, The real traditional in everything has its place, but also there has to be an evolution. New York is a constantly evolving city, and its cuisine must evolve as well. After I left the restaurant, and I drank that concoction, I wasn't sure where I stood. Was a new egg cream era taking the place of the original one? Was the egg cream destined to be forever mired in stagnant nostalgia until it faded from memory? Or was it changing with time, transforming into something barely recognizable? Were new concoctions like those offered by 11 Madison Park a revelation or an abomination? I suspect this debate might not mean as much to millennials who don't generally know from egg creams. When they think of flavored seltzer, they are less likely to think about 2 cents plain, You Bets, or a cherry lime Ricky. No, what comes to mind usually is a can of LaCroix. But that's a lecture for a different night. Eddie, can you bring up the lights, please, for a moment? So I now like to invite my co-panelists and colleagues up to the stage. We have both Andy and Peter, and we'll get to explore many of the issues explored both in the video and in my short presentation. We're about to move off this stage, so if you need the Instagram information, grab it real quick. And now here we go. Thank you.
Thank you. I know I don't look a day younger or older than in that movie, which was made about 50 years ago. So
it's a miracle. It's from drinking egg creams, I think.
I'd just like to ask a question of the audience. We've all been very involved in politics recently. And don't you think it would be a good idea for New York City to have bubbling fountains of seltzer water as a public convenience? So after the egg creams, on to City Hall. I want to talk to you both, Peter and Barry, about, you brought this up in your talk, order. The order in which the egg cream is served, or put together. I mean, to me, the classic egg cream is chocolate, milk, and then seltzer. But in the movie, I saw milk, seltzer, then chocolate syrup being put in, and what was the third one, Peter?
Then there's chocolate syrup, then milk, then
that's the first one.
That's the first one, right? Then there's.
Part of the fun is remembering the combinations of the
Every combination is represented, and they're all represented emphatically.
That's right. Emphatically is the main thing. This is the right one. I'm from the Bronx. Here's how you do it. I'm from Brooklyn. Here's how you do it. I'm from Chicago. Here's how you do it. If you ever go to Junior's and you get their egg cream glass, it has the measurements for not only how much to put in, but where. And they start with the chocolate on the bottom, then the milk, then the seltzer.
Does it make a difference?
Anyone who is emphatic about it would argue that it does. Personally, if it's made well, that's all I care about. I want something that's going to taste great, be light and bubbly, and be sweet and refreshing.
Peter,
to pin me down. It's not going to get me.
Do you have an opinion on this?
You know, I love the fact that people care deeply about it. And I love the fact that people take this so seriously. To me, I really honestly am agnostic about the order where what goes in where, but I just, it was such a joy to watch people take something so frivolous so seriously.
And we have two very different projects. One a video, one a book. We both spent over a decade putting it together. And I think I can speak for both of us. It's that passion that I think drove both of us. One of the pieces I know for me was so important. Why people were so passionate about egg creams, about seltzer, and following where do these passions come from? What does it mean for them? It's clearly more than just a moment of relaxation. It's clearly more than just a sweet drink. It's clearly more than just something, cold on a hot day. There's something more to it for people, and different people have different reasons, but it's remarkable how many different meanings people bring to these simple drinks, whether it's just plain seltzer or an egg cream.
Right, well, it's like the simplicity of the drink and also the vagueness about its origins and also the sort of question of really how good is it, in which people can put all their own personal meanings onto the concoction. Peter?
Can I just say, deflecting the question for 1 second, speaking of passion, this is the first time that the egg cream documentary has been shown in Manhattan, where so much of the story takes place. And I just wanted to say that there are people in the room who helped make this film, including our star and guide and commentator, our animator, John Ackerman, who all that Brian, are you back there? Yes, and Brian, our animation team at the front and the back, who made those beautiful titles and bubbles. Is anybody else in the movie or part of the movie involved here? No. But anyway, it's such a, speaking of passion, it only took 13 years, I think, to make this 15-minute film.
And we're not competing. Mine was 14. And if I could take a moment for my thank you, I got a call a year and a half ago from publisher David Berman, who's in the front, who said, "Is the book still available?" And when I said yes, he said, "Good, because if not, everyone who works with me would kill me." Because they were so excited about the book, and the book would not be out today and be nowhere near as good as it is today without the support of David and the rest of the wonderful people at Berman House. I want to thank David.
Well, I just have to say, Barry, that the book is really the greatest book on seltzer that has ever been
You and Mel
published.
Brooks agree. Thank you.
Yes. And I mean, I don't think anybody will ever equal it. And I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about what seltzer means to New York City beyond the egg cream. It's not just, the wind beneath the sails of the egg cream. It's a whole lot more. And if you can tell us what you think it means for the city and the history here.
That's a great question. Seltzer means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But the book in many ways addresses the most common ones. The original thing people associate with seltzer is its medicinal properties, its health-giving properties. Because originally that's what seltzer was. It was water that came out of the ground, that attracted the minerals as it came up and was carbonated on the way. And instead of being able to get it in a glass, in a restaurant or a can in a store, the only way to get it was to travel to these spas, these places where you would take the waters. And it was those medicinal properties, as well as the health properties that came from leaving a polluted city, that made people think that this water was wonderful. And even just a few years ago, when we had those ad campaigns in the subway that said, "Don't drink yourself fat," that had these really gross ads of these soda cans pouring out fat into a glass, what it said was, instead drink water, drink milk, or drink seltzer. And it was wonderful to come to work in the city, working on the book while I was traveling on the different subway lines, looking up and seeing these ads encouraging people to drink seltzer. So first we start with health, and we have both the contemporary connections with Mayor Bloomberg, fighting big soda, advocating for seltzer, and going back to the beginning. Then we start seeing things about what it means to have it not be a medicine, but to have it be a drink for the masses. Things like egg creams and other syrups and the hundreds of different concoctions people would come up with one soda jerk after another, competing with a person across the street from them to see how can they get people into their soda shop. Whether they're mixing, you said your favorite was Cherry Lime Ricky? Yeah. My favorite as well. Anyone else here prefer Cherry Lime Ricky or enjoy Cherry Lime Ricky? What are some other drinks you guys enjoy, the old-fashioned drinks with the different syrups? Shout them out. Raspberry Lime Ricky. Anything else? There were all sorts of crazy names. And so we have an egg cream today, but the egg cream was not only the one, essentially the egg cream was the winner. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of different drinks that were mixed over decades. And most of them we don't recall. There's only a few we can think of, and the egg cream is the one we remember the most. So we go from health, we go to beverage, and then we start recognizing comedy. Starting with the Jewish comedians here in the vaudeville scene, using all sorts of funny props on the stage that then went to movies and then television, and the seltzer siphon being one of those. Many people, when they think about seltzer, they think about Clarabelle the Clown, they think about the Three Stooges. Some people think about the Seinfeld episode or Mary Tyler Moore. And we see it over the decades as our relationship with seltzer has evolved. And then finally we have identity, Jews and seltzer. Many people think of it as the Jewish champagne, and that has its own story. And today...
Grapesfutter.
That's right. That's right. For burping, right? And for today, you don't need to be Jewish to have seltzer be something to help you affirm your identity. For many millennials, it's their drink. I was at I won't say where I was at a company today where Pepsi is the one who sponsors everything there. And so they have their own seltzer to compete with LaCroix. And every single person who's there, all younger than me, they had their seltzer in front of them from this Pepsi product. But when I asked them, they all wish they had LaCroix instead. It's such an important part of millennial culture. And so if you don't know any millennials and you meet one, ask them about it. Because for people who are older, this is something new and surprising. But for many places, the battle to get to the fridge when new LaCroix comes in is a big part of how they identify. Not just a product they choose to drink, but a way they identify. I'm a seltzer drinker.
And speaking of the future, where do you see, for both of you, where do you see egg creams heading? Will we see a unicorn egg cream?
an Instagram-worthy egg cream?
To me, the part of the beauty of the present and the future and the past of the egg cream is how it's reflected New York's changing ethnic worlds. To me, if you go down to the Gem Spa, which is a great place to get an egg cream in the Lower East Side in East Village, which used to be run by the Goldfader family, it's now run by people from Bangladesh, if I'm not mistaken. The great egg cream that we had that you can get at Eisenberg's is made by Jose, who grew up in Mexico. The bagels in my neighborhood from Lenny's are made by people from Thailand or of Thai extraction. The egg cream is in some ways a lens, or the bagel, or so many other things that are Jewish culture, seltzer, are a lens for understanding how our place in this country and how immigrants' place in this country transitions and changes. And so in some ways, I'm hoping that the future of the egg cream is that in 20, 30, 50, 10 years, somebody's daughter is going to ask them to make a film about something having to do with Latino immigration or having to do with Arab immigration, where there will be a film about the falafel that brings together daughter and son or whatever. I just feel like the evolution of this drink from humble, miserable, crowded at the soda fountain, dirty glass, to 11 Madison Park, to everything else that it is just all about the beauty that is the change that is what makes our city and our nation special.
Well said, well said. Barry, the future of the egg cream.
Right now, if we look at the trends, in seltzer in general, we're seeing hard seltzer, alcohol. Are we going to see hard egg creams? I don't know. We'll see. When I went to Fox's company and I met the father and son who were running it at the time, they told me, and even showed me the bottle, there was an effort to bottle an egg cream. So you can go to your corner deli and you can buy it. And it was all set to go, and the company that they were partnering with decided not to move forward with it. I've spoken with at least one other company that thought about doing that. If someone can do with the egg cream, with what LaCroix did with seltzer, egg creams would be all over the country. For better or for worse. I don't know if that would be a good thing. But I was speaking with someone just yesterday who's from Los Angeles, and there's a deli out there, and when he heard about my book, he said, you know, my friend runs this deli, there's an egg cream on the menu, and no one ever orders it, unless they come from New York. And then they come and they say they want an egg cream. And then the man who runs the place, who's from Brooklyn, comes out and goes, who ordered the egg cream? And he says, that's what they come for. They want that connection with New York, with the East Coast, and with that part of their past, and the nostalgia they have for it.
But then they'll say, this isn't an egg cream. They can't make it here. It's not right. And speaking of hard egg creams, I heard a rumor that there's like a special flavor in Fox's chocolate syrup, which is whiskey. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard was like, the secret ingredient. I think maybe we're ready to open it up to questions from the audience. Shirley,
We have mics?
Is there you're going to hold the mic?
Please say your name first before you ask the question.
I'm just wondering.
Sorry, what's your name?
My name is Ivan.
Hi, Ivan.
My nickname is Seltzer. No. I'm just wondering, it seems that bottled water has become so popular. You see it everywhere. Everyone's carrying it around. How has that affected the popularity of seltzer?
It's a great question. It is undeniable that the rise of interest in seltzer has come along with the rise of interest in water. It just lifted it, right? But when you go back to when seltzer started becoming popular, it wasn't in recent years. When you look at the history of seltzer, you see a peak in popularity around World War I, right? In New York City, all the immigration from Europe, it was at its top. And then people started moving to the suburbs. World War II, Coca-Cola became the drink if you were American. People drank that. You'd buy it in the supermarket. It got less and less popular until we hit the 1970s. And then you saw article after article talking about the death of seltzer. And those articles continued. But at the same time, something else happened. Perrier came to America. Bottled water. It became fancy. The yuppies were drinking it.
People who drank seltzer said, wait a second, we already have something like that. It's already ours. It's seltzer. People started flavoring it. Original New York Seltzer was the first brand in the 80s to say, we can put flavor in seltzer and sell it. You don't have to do it at home or in a store. And that line kept going up and up and up. And while it was going up, people started thinking, wait a second, do I want sugary soda in my body? And we started having movements around the country to think more about eating healthy, drinking healthy. There were public health efforts. As people moved away from seltzer, as people moved away from soda, they often moved to water. And they were missing something. And they thought it was the sugar. Then they realized it was the carbonation. And they realized if I drank seltzer, they could have the thing that they love so much about soda, but not have the sugar. So seltzer's rise in recent years has come from, in large part, from that transition from away from soda, one extreme going to water, and then kind of taking a step back to that carbonation, which gives you the seltzer. Hey, Norma.
Is there any other ethnic group besides the Jews that has had such a relationship with seltzer?
Ethnic group, you have whole countries. Okay. Anyone here from Argentina? Anyone here from Hungary? If you go to those countries, you can't not see seltzer. If you go to those countries, they didn't have the rise and fall and rise like we did. It never stopped. In Hungary, when they joined the EU, they were so worried that Coke and Pepsi were going to come in and put all of their thousands of seltzer works out of business that they protected it as a national treasure. National treasure is not the official term, but it was whatever the official term was to say, this is a local, important part of our country that should be treated differently than every other product in the commercial space. And in Argentina, again, you see seltzer siphons everywhere, and in fact, some of the seltzer men and women in the US are using the bottles from Argentina because you can't get the siphons anymore if you have a traditional seltzer works. Those are from Bohemia and Eastern Europe from 80, 90 years ago. If they break, they're gone. If the tin heads, the tin-made heads, the siphon heads are broken, you can't replace them. But Argentina, they do them with plastic now. That's modern, that's contemporary, that makes sense. And so we're seeing that. So when it comes to different groups associating themselves with seltzer, Jews are not the only ones.
Hi, my name is Robin. No one has mentioned an important step in the making of an egg cream, which is cold milk. You will notice that Isenbergs took it out of the refrigerator, but every great egg cream I've ever had, they always said you must have cold milk.
Yes, but a piece of advice, which is don't make your chocolate syrup cold, or it won't melt into your milk. A problem which we've had in our lives, and it's really sad when that happens.
Gloria. I grew up in the Bronx, and we had seltzer delivered by a seltzer man, a carton, and one of those big wooden things with
the wooden crates.
And I don't remember if it was 8 or 12. I wonder how much that weighed because Dave, the seltzer man, carried it up 3 flights on his shoulder.
If all the siphons are full, yes. All of them plus the crate, I think is about 70 pounds. And so Eli Miller, who retired last year, was in his late 80s when he retired. And I write about him in the book and about offering to help him carry it because it was so painful watching him pick it up, and I couldn't lift it. And he said, let me do that. You write the story. I'll carry the siphons.
But Eli delivered to a neighbor of ours who's mentioned in the book. And I used to see him like once a week delivering the cases of seltzer. And he was this old guy with these huge, long arms, which I believe were extended because he'd been lifting so many cases of seltzer. And he would just have a claw-like hand, like holding a case in each arm, and take it up. And it was just amazing, his ability, because I couldn't lift one of those. So, I mean, very impressive.
Question for Barry. Can you speak to club soda and where it fits in?
Can you say a little bit more about what you want to know about it?
Well, where does it fit in? I know there's salt in club soda, not in seltzer, but how did club soda come into the picture? And is there any sort of ethnic division? Who drinks what?
So, are there any bartenders here? Right, no one can tell me if I'm wrong about this. I think there's 4 mixers. You have seltzer, you have club soda, tonic water, and ginger ale. And those are the four. Often what people ask me is, what's the difference between seltzer and club soda? And they insist, before I get a chance to say anything, that the club soda is the one with salt and seltzer is the one without. And generally, that's probably true. But there's no rule that says one or the other. Club soda might have no salt or no sodium added. Seltzer might have sodium or salt added. The only way to know is to look on the side. What you're really looking at is the history of marketing, of advertising, of branding, and how people have defined different things at different times. I can go to any restaurant in New York and I can order seltzer. I'm going to get seltzer. I can go to lots of places in the country and order seltzer, and they're going to give me soda water. Excuse me, they're going to give me club soda. They're going to give me tonic water. They're not going to even know what I mean when I say, I don't mean the tonic water, I mean seltzer. So these things are defined by space and time. It's possible that after Prohibition, when bars opened up once again, and people wanted to go back to doing what they're doing and mixing with the seltzer for the drinks. Seltzer was maybe seen now as too low class, and so club soda was seen as more fancy. I don't have any proof of that, but I think that's possible from what I've seen. But beyond that, I think of them as really close siblings that have grew up together over time.
But it's also the level of carbonation, because seltzer has more carbonation. To me, seltzer is like fine little bubbles, which doesn't give you much greps. But, seltzer gives you a nice, healthy one.
Whereas I would say, growing up, when my dad would make me an egg cream, or when my dad would pour me a glass of seltzer, and he came from the ghetto and he was old school, I didn't care if it was club soda or seltzer, it felt ethnic. So, we didn't have seltzer. There wasn't seltzer from the supermarket when I was growing up. It was club soda. But to me, if my dad poured me a glass of club soda, I felt like I was entering his past. So there's an associative quality to how we understand our carbonated water, too.
And those kind of associations are so strong in a food tradition, in what you eat and what you drink. Those are things that pull up memories from the past very fast.
Hi, my name is Rich. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I get the cases delivered still to me, and I have an egg cream every morning, get me going. And I have with either a zucchini bread or bialy and cream cheese. And
you're making me hungry.
Yeah, and it's still delivered. There's one bottler left in the New York area in Brooklyn. My delivery guy comes from Long Island, goes to Brooklyn, comes back towards Queens out on his way out back to Long Island. And I believe in South Florida, there's only one bottler left.
Thank you.
Doing it.
There's three on the way down, just so Shirley can see. And thank you, Shirley, for running up and down. We're really giving her a workout tonight.
Hi, Michelle. How did seltzer get its name?
Oh, great question. Before I say it, does anyone know? All right. Seltzer is one of those products that are named for a location. There's a town of Seltzer. It wasn't originally Seltzer. It changed over time. It's Niederselters. Niederselters is a town in Germany, which was one of those spas I was talking about, where people for hundreds of years went there to take the water. And over time, before we had mass bottling, they would take the water and they would put it in these clay jugs, and they would travel around Europe and then travel around the world. Niederselters on the bottle became Selters. Selters itself is a word that means salty water. And then the Z got in there, maybe in France, it was Seltz, and then eventually became Seltzer. So when we say seltzer, we refer to a type of water, of what we usually think of as just carbonated water with nothing added to it, but that's not what it was when it was back at Niederselters. It was what we now think of as mineral water. But more importantly, what we're saying is the water from seltzers, like the water from Saratoga Springs or the water from Bath. Right? But we've forgotten that history, and it just became the name for everything like that.
Hi, I'm David, and I was wondering, you haven't mentioned SodaStream at all. And one of the, you can control your carbonation, that make it very bubbly or not. And of course, it's environmentally beneficial because, but I don't know if you're pro or con SodaStream or
pro or con. So thank you for bringing up SodaStream. If you read the book, you'll see that it is because of SodaStream that this book and my 14-year exploration of seltzer began. Because I wanted to own one, and I figured if I wrote a review of it for the forward, I'd get paid to write the review, and the company would send me a free one. And I was right. I wrote this really tiny piece, searching Google for whatever I could find. It was the same thing. Every search told me exactly the same thing. I had barely anything to say. I wrote this article. I included my email. Somebody contacted me and said, maybe there's a book in this. I thought it was a crazy idea. I then started asking people, if I wrote a book about seltzer, what would you write about? And everyone said, that's a crazy idea. But if you do write a book, you have to include this. And it was different from what everyone else before them had said and everyone after, but they were all passionate about it. And I wanted to figure that out. So SodaStream, that was how I started with SodaStream. So I'm pro SodaStream. I'm on my 4th machine. SodaStream started in England after 1900 as a device for someone like in a Downton Abbey location to mix their drinks and make the carbonation. It changed over time. A few years later, it became a product for other people. Long story, to today, an Israeli distributor of it ended up buying it in the 1990s. They own it now. They came to America in 2002, maybe 2003. All their advertising, all of it was for juice. You don't want to schlep your bottles home anymore. It was all Yiddishisms. They called it seltzer. 2 years later, the same language. Seltzer was replaced with sparkling water. All the Jewish-looking people in the photos looked a little less Jewish. And now you can get it in Costco and all the big box stores around the country. And it exploded in popularity with the rise of seltzer around the country. I can say more about it. There's a little more in the book. Feel free to talk to me afterwards, and I can go deeper into them if you like. There's one in the front. Sure.
My name is Danny. I seem to remember in the 50s there was an ersatz chocolate drink, Yoo-Hoo. It was touted by Yogi Berra. I remember tasting it, had a little carbonation. It was in chocolate soda. Do you think that was feeble attention?
Was it carbonated? Sorry, was it? You shook it to mix it up. Don't mean to. Your memories are your memories. I don't want to challenge them. But other people here remember the no combination. But I loved that. Loved Yoo-Hoo. I'm sure it was terrible for me. I used to drink it in the pizza shop. I get my pizza in my Yoo-Hoo. Yeah. Yuck.
But, the difference between a Yoo-Hoo, which has been sitting sadly in a bottle, and an egg cream, which is made presently and has a finite lifespan, is that the egg cream's only good for minutes, half minutes. You make the thing. If you walk away from your egg cream and take a phone call and come back, it's no good. It's like egg cream is ephemeral and temporary.
It's alive.
Alive. Thank you.
You can't get an egg cream to drink with your meal. That just doesn't work.
Nurse an egg cream.
You can't nurse an egg cream. Stanley would talk about that at the Oster, all the Oster locations. There was a special club. If you can drink, I think it was 20 egg creams in 10 minutes, then you were like in the special club. You know, like if you go to a restaurant, if you eat the largest hamburger or the biggest steak, you get your photo up. So for them, it was like, can you drink 20 in 10 minutes?
Don't try this at home.
It's interesting. The last.
What's your name?
My name is Artie.
Hey, Artie.
And the next to the last frame in the documentary showed them making an egg cream. The way they made it at a place on 7th Avenue in the Garment Center, where they took one cup and then they would spill the egg cream back and forth. And I can tell you, that made a terrific egg cream.
That's a picture that you're referring to from one of these turn of the 20th century like drink manuals where they would teach the bartender or equivalent how to make the thing. And that was actually guys with making egg drinks where they would throw the egg from one glass to the other as these beautifully drawn pictures of these very serious looking barkeeps making egg drinks.
You can find these wonderful descriptions in the manuals for if you wanted to be a soda jerk, these are the recipes to use. And there were pages upon pages. You can go to Google Books and find them. They're all available now that describe all these different drinks you can make. These are the phosphate drinks. These are the egg drinks with real eggs. And they would describe the mechanisms for how you would not just pour them into a glass, but do the shaking back and forth in the order to do it. It was a performance when you went to get a drink 100 years ago. I wish I could see that today. Some people have brought back the old recipes, and it's really fun for me to go in and see what a phosphate's like for the first time or try one of these egg drinks. But no one I see has brought back the theatrics that were involved and what it meant to watch someone mix these things right in front of you with multiple devices.
But I think that those soda fountain drinks were a lot like the unicorn desserts, like the milkshakes covered with rainbow sprinkles and M&Ms that they serve today. I mean, they were really just like doing everything they could to make a show in the glass with ice cream. So it's the same idea.
Hi, I'm Ruth. I did not grow up in New York, so I never heard of.
Where'd you grow up?
All over, Navy brat. So I never heard of an egg cream until I moved to Brooklyn. I have a question, though, about what I was seeing in the film about the spoon. Is there something special about how you use the spoon? And
my guru of egg cream making, who is Jerry Rake, who's the Hebrew school teacher who takes us through that preposterous story about Milka and her Maccabee egg cream, is insistent upon a 45-degree angle. And when you pour the seltzer in, which he does before you pour the chocolate in, which is, I know, controversial, if you don't pour it over the back of the spoon, turned upside down, so the concave part is receiving the seltzer water, and you don't pour it at a 45-degree angle, the egg cream will not come out right, according to Jerry. And I take that seriously. I have never used anything other than a 45. I don't know whether it has any effect really.
What I've been told, and I have not done a scientific study of this, and if you have, please let me know. Multiple times I've been told this, that there's something about having the seltzer bounce off the spoon that affects the way the carbonation and bubbles go into the mix. So the idea is if you don't have the spoon, the carbonation's not going in the right way. Maybe it's making the bubbles smaller, maybe bigger, I don't know exactly. But they always insist that there's something about it hitting off the spoon and going back in, before it hits in, not the side of the glass, but the spoon itself, that really transforms it. Might be a myth, might be real.
Is there a
Test it out.
physicist in the house?
But just one more thing about the spoons is also when you stir the egg cream with the spoon, you're supposed to stir it so the spoon really doesn't agitate the bubbles on top. It swirls around at the bottom, but you do not want to burst the bubbles.
There is nothing worse than a flat egg cream. I send them back. Because if you do it wrong, you're just going to have this flat seltzer with some chocolate, and that is gross.
Okay, so on that note, because we just took the milk and seltzer out of the fridge, I hope we see at least 100 different ways of making egg cream. So please help yourself outside, but you really want to also get a copy of Seltzertopia signed by Barry. So I'm going to thank these guests very much for being with us tonight. Thank you for coming. And Barry, you have to go and sign the book.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
We got to get a photo.